The story of Anneliese Michel begins in 1968 in the peaceful Bavaria, West Germany, a place where the Catholic faith was as dense as the winter fog. Anneliese, a 16-year-old girl, grew up in a deeply religious family, accustomed to frequent masses and penances. Her life was normal until the night brought her back to reality in a brutal way. She suffered her first severe seizure, an episode that doctors at the Würzburg Psychiatric Hospital diagnosed as temporal lobe epilepsy. She was prescribed medication, but seizures were not the only thing tormenting her. Anneliese began complaining of seeing faces of the devil during her prayers and hearing voices telling her she was damned and would rot in hell. Medicine offered no relief. The medications, like Tegretol, seemed ineffective against the demons that, according to her, visited her. Her mental and physical health deteriorated, and the cheerful, reserved young woman transformed into a shadow of her former self. She became withdrawn, depressed, and a feeling of emotional numbness took hold of her. Her intolerance to sacred objects, a classic symptom in possession stories, became evident. She couldn't touch a crucifix or enter the sanctuary of a church, claiming the images of the saints shone too brightly. The family, convinced that science had failed, began seeking answers in faith. They firmly believed that Anneliese's symptoms were not medical, but the result of a spiritual battle. Medicine and faith collided, and Anneliese was trapped in the middle. Anneliese's parents, Joseph and Anna, clung to the belief of demonic possession as the only plausible explanation for their daughter's torment. Doctors at the Middelfart Psychiatric Hospital, where she was admitted for depression and tuberculosis, could not explain Anneliese's aversion to religious symbols. For the Michel family, the answer was clear. Anneliese had abandoned medical treatment in 1973, and the search for an exorcist became their priority. They contacted several priests, but the Catholic Church was reluctant to authorize a formal rite. The priests requested more evidence and suggested continuing medical treatment. Joseph and Anna did not give up. Their daughter worsened daily. Episodes of violence and self-harm became more frequent. Anneliese hid under tables, barked like a dog, and howled for hours, a sound that pierced the walls of her room. The young woman, once a bright and devout student, now ate spiders, flies, and coal, and even drank her own urine. The parents' desperation was palpable. Finally, their persistence paid off. In 1975, Father Ernst Alt, after witnessing one of Anneliese's horrific episodes, and Father Arnold Renz, obtained authorization from the Bishop of Würzburg, Joseph Stengel. The church determined there was sufficient evidence for the moral probability of possession. On September 24, 1975, the first official exorcism under the Roman ritual Rituale Romanum was authorized. Anneliese's fight was about to enter a terrifying phase. With the bishop's approval, priests Alt and Renz began the series of exorcisms. The ritual was intensive and brutal. 67 exorcism sessions were conducted over a period of 10 months, often twice a week, each lasting up to 4 hours. The family and the priests were convinced they were waging a spiritual war against multiple demons dwelling within Anneliese's body. During these sessions, 51 audio tapes were recorded, which would later become crucial and chilling evidence in the trial. In the recordings, Anneliese is heard alternating between her own voice and guttural, demonic voices, identifying themselves as Cain, Judas Iscariot, Nero, Hitler, an excommunicated 16th century priest named Valentine Fleischmann, and finally Lucifer. The young woman's screams were heart-wrenching, filled with blasphemies and details about the lives of the supposed demons. The intensity of the rituals was extreme. Anneliese often had to be restrained, tied to a chair or the floor, due to her unnatural strength and violent spasms. Despite the priest's belief that the process was working, Anneliese's physical health deteriorated rapidly with each session. The fasting she imposed on herself, or that the demons forced upon her, according to believers, and the exhaustion from the rituals were consuming her. As the spiritual war intensified, Anneliese's body withered. She stopped eating and drinking almost entirely, convinced that the demons would not allow it, or that her sacrifice would save lost souls. Her body weight dropped dramatically, reaching just 31 kilograms by the end of her ordeal. Her knees were shattered due to the constant forced genuflections she performed. For hours, she developed pneumonia and anemia, and her face, once vibrant, became gaunt and pale. The family and priests, absorbed in the battle against evil, did not seek medical help for months, believing that any medical intervention would interfere with the exorcism. Anneliese, in her moments of lucidity, expressed fear and pain, but also a strange determination to complete her mission of atonement. By the spring of 1976, her condition was critical. She couldn't move without assistance and could barely speak. The priests continued the rites, interpreting her physical weakness as a sign that the demons were weakening. Stigmata appeared on her body, a phenomenon believers attributed to the physical manifestation of her suffering. The impending tragedy loomed over the Michel house in Liebelfing, while the outside world remained ignorant of the horrors unfolding behind closed doors. The line between faith, mental illness, and negligence blurred dangerously. On June 30th, 1976, the 67th and final exorcism session took place. Anneliese was incredibly weak. Fever consumed her, and she could barely stay conscious. Father Renz and Father Alt continued with prayers and rituals, holding on to hope for an imminent victory over the dark forces. Anneliese muttered her last audible words. "Mutter, ich have angst, mother, I am afraid." These words would forever resonate in her mother's conscience and in the records of the case, a cry for help that encapsulated the young woman's horror and vulnerability. During the night, her condition worsened catastrophically. She no longer responded to stimuli, and her breathing became shallow. On the morning of July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel passed away in her bed at the age of 23. The autopsy would reveal the cause of death: severe malnutrition and dehydration. Her death shocked the small community and quickly became a national and international scandal. The story of the young German woman who died during an exorcism tested the limits of faith, medicine, and law. Authorities initiated a criminal investigation for negligent homicide. The case forced a modern society to confront uncomfortable questions about the reality of extreme religious beliefs and the role of medicine in mental health. The trial for the death of Anneliese Michel began in 1978 and captured Germany's attention. In the dock were her parents, Joseph and Anna Michel, and the two priests, Ernst Alt and Arnold Renz. All were accused of negligent homicide. The courtroom became a battleground between science and faith. The prosecution argued that Anneliese suffered from epilepsy and psychosis, and that her death could have been easily prevented with medical intervention, such as a simple feeding tube. They presented medical evidence showing extreme malnutrition and dehydration. The defense, on the other hand, argued the real existence of demonic possession and freedom of worship. They tried to present the 51 audio tapes of the exorcisms as evidence of real possession, but they were not admitted as conclusive proof. Witnesses testified about Anneliese's strange behaviors, including speaking in ancient tongues and displaying superhuman strength. The debate revolved around whether the defendants, acting under a genuine religious belief, could be held criminally responsible for Anneliese's death. Anneliese's tragedy became a paradigm of the collision between the secular legal system and deep, unwavering religious belief. The trial concluded with a verdict of guilty of negligent homicide for all four defendants. The parents and priests were sentenced to 6 months in jail, which were suspended and replaced by 3 years of probation and a fine. The court ruled that while religious freedom was respected, the duty to seek medical help for a life-threatening condition was paramount and could not be ignored. The case sent shockwaves through the Catholic Church and German society. Anneliese was buried in the Klingenberg Cemetery. Her grave became a place of pilgrimage for believers and the curious, who considered her a martyr who died fighting the devil. The controversy persisted for decades.